Let me know when we're ready.
You see the white thing just dance?
No, but I heard a weird noise. I heard, ah.
I watched the white thing, like, dance off my screen.
I heard something exactly when you looked.
Oh, I'm
It literally went,
recording right now, so
right.
that's gonna be a cold opening because I don't know what the fuck that just was.
Yeah, no, I heard like, and then like, you look. So I looked at you because I was like, oh, she's looking. Maybe her cat made a noise.
No, something white just danced off my screen.
Starting the episode off right.
I love it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Megan,
I'm Sage.
and you're back with the Squeaky Floor Bird Society and a ghost, maybe. Before it's actually been a few weeks since we've recorded anything together. Some life stuff has happened, as it does. So, Sage, do you have what do you have new to share for us before we get into this week's episode?
I've been wanting to share this with you since March 11th.
Okay.
And I keep forgetting. I literally have a note in my phone that says, "You need to tell Megan this." So you know how you get like random messages on like
Mm,
Instagram or like honestly any social media that just goes to your spam.
yeah, I
I
get those in my email.
I check this at maybe once every couple months just to see
Mhm.
what's over there and delete stuff. And I got one from it doesn't even matter who it's from. I don't know who it is. They follow me. They have a pretty big following and we have a lot of similar people that we like that
Uh-huh.
I'm friends with that they're following.
Yeah.
And March 11th at 11:56 p.m. The full moon update and down date, completing the transactions in the muse. Introduction. Across cultures and centuries, the full moon has been seen as a cosmic accountant balancing energies, closing cycles, and opening new ones. In the symbolic muse, a mystical leader of abundance and destiny, the full moon acts as both banker and messenger, updating desires and downloading fulfillment. Concept of the muse. The muse can be imaged, not imagined, imaged, as a celestial vault, a place where human intentions are stored, encrypted in light. Each desire, want, or need is recorded as a transaction. The full moon, with its radiance completeness, becomes the auditor that reviews, approves, and finalizes these update phase. The moon gathers the enclosed desires, lifting them upward like data packets of the cosmic upload. Down date phase. Once verified, the moon returns fulfillment, downloading prosperity and clarity into the seeker's paths. Serene. Sit. Still your breath. The circle opens only when silence agrees to hold us. Tonight we will conclude the cycle of guidance and settle our offerings owed. And then they set my middle name after that.
Well, what does that mean?
I don't know.
You messaged them back ever
No.
to find out what that fucking means? And that's the only thing they've ever sent you?
That's the only thing. I've never responded. I opened it and I was like, what are you saying to me right now?
Like, I understand what they're saying, but why? The question is why? Like, I understand this is that, like, cyclical, cosmic, like, new age, hoopla,
Yeah.
but, like, why?
I don't know. It was just I remember reading it and I was like, "What are you saying to me right now? And why are you sending me this at 11:59 at night?"
'Cause that's when the moon's out. That was the moon stage.
The moon is speaking to me.
Start a new religion right now. No, that's what?
Yeah, and I've been wanting to tell you since I saw it because I saw it, like, the day after it got sent, and I was like, "I need to talk about this on the podcast," and then, like, a bunch of things were happening. We were both in school and just things were going on, so, like, I never got a chance, and I finally remembered to tell you today.
That's bizarre. This is why I don't talk to people on the internet because 'cause they're just so
I
strange.
never accepted it. So, it's just like a message request that is just there that I've yet to accept.
Imagine you send all that and it's never even accepted. Or you
Literally.
guys can probably see my camera shaking, my knees are right up on my desk.
What do I do? Just say, "What? Why?"
I would be like, "Hey, Can I have some context?
Why did you send
No.
this to me?
Yeah. Why me of all people?
Literally.
They saw season 1 and said, "I gotta talk to her about the moon."
Maybe that's what it is.
Mayhaps. You never know with these
Mayhaps.
weirdos online.
Well, I wondered
I
too if
mean, it sounds like they sent that with good intentions though, so I don't wanna, like, just be like, "Man, what a fucking weirdo." Like, it doesn't like they were sending you anything negative. I think they were just it's just a
yeah.
strange thing to say with no prior, "What happened to hi, hello, how are you?"
Yeah. Maybe that was her thing. They're like, if I send her something really weird, she'll respond.
I
But then
mean,
when I read it to somebody, they were like, could it be because your Instagram name has your middle name in it? And I was like, I guess it
mm,
could be,
mm,
but
right. Anything less cryptic going on?
life has been very boring. I'm medicated, as I told Megan before we started. So, it's just been me very tired
Mm.
because one of them's an SSRI and the other one's just like it treats anxiety, but it's basically just a super heavy like allergy medication. So like you can't have anxiety
Oh,
if you're unconscious.
the Benadryl approach,
Yep. So,
right?
but the OCD med is giving me headaches.
Ooh,
But she said that the first month will be the roughest on it, and then after that it should even
like,
out. So I'm
okay.
done with a lot of headaches and just not feeling great.
Right, no, that sucks. Is it working?
So the because the OCD one is an SSRI, I have to wait for it to build in my system. So in
Mm,
4 to 6 weeks, she said I will have like the like aha moment of
mm,
like, wow, I can function as a human being. But
right.
until then, I just get headaches and not feeling great.
Fun.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't record for a few weeks because my grandmother died, which nobody get too hung up on that. She was 83 years old and had Alzheimer's. We knew it was coming. But the interesting thing about my grandmother, right, is she did not eat for almost 3 weeks before she passed, and she did not drink for a week. They genuinely were like, "How," like, the doctors were like, "We don't know why she's still kicking." They're like, "She shoulda died on, like, day 3
Yeah.
of not drinking because she wasn't drinking a whole lot before." And she proceeded to live for another 4 days. And genuinely, I think it was out of spite.
I remember you texting me saying like she's not eaten or drank anything.
Yeah, no, my grandmother was the person in my family most like me, I think. She she was very she could get petty. When she wanted to be petty, that woman could be petty. And I genuinely think I'm not going to go into like family stuff here, but I think that she was doing it out of spite. And my mother would agree with me on that.
I
Um what?
I was like say knowing you, if that was like you, that would you would so she was the most like you I could see.
Yeah, we even look super similar.
Yeah.
Which I sent Sage a picture, and it's like picking me out, and she's got red lipstick on in the picture, which I don't really wear. But if I put on some red lipstick and I stood like that in the background of a photo,
I
you know,
clocked it and didn't even read the message prior to.
yeah, yeah. You know what happened to me? I had a nurse there tell me, a nurse I'd never seen before. She went, looked at my dad. She went, "Oh, that's your dad." I said, "Yes," and she went, "I can tell because you guys look just alike." And you know that meme of like that of John Cena in a wig?
Yeah.
That's what I fucking felt like. I felt like my dad in a wig. And so I said, "Yeah, we both look really similar, especially when we do this." I said, "We get the same lines." And she was like, "Oh, yeah, you do actually."
That's like
Like,
a wild thing to say.
don't tell me I look exactly like my dad. Which, even though it's true, I just look like my dad with some chopped bangs and tits. But You know, don't tell me that. It doesn't help that it doesn't help that we now both have the same degree. Because y'all, I graduated finally. I guess who has 2 thumbs and a bachelor's of accounting? This girl. Um, However, that happened the same week that my grandmother died, so there was not a lot of fanfare about my graduation. And then my workplace does a board of all the graduates, and they forgot to put me on there.
So it was just a rough week.
I never even said anything. She took that. Like, I know she knows the lady who does it. I know she knows I graduated because me and one of the dudes in my department both did and have been consistently talking about it. And somebody told her, and he also told her. And she even asked me where I graduated from, and I think she just forgot because she's like, Megan's a 30-year-old woman. Like, she wasn't even thinking about me. It's like high schoolers, a couple of college students, and then I'm just nowhere. Damn, they got me again. Which, like I said, I don't really care. I don't need Kroger Corporation to acknowledge my graduation. But I was just like, damn.
I acknowledge your
I
graduation.
can't have anything. um So that's the main stuff that's been happening in my life. As I was bitching to Sage before this, I still have more school to do because I don't have quite enough credits to sit for the CPA exam, nor am I ready to sit for the CPA exam. That shit's fucking hard.
Yeah. Uh, m
Like, people don't pass. People don't pass it the first time typically. What they do is there's like 4 parts, and you have to pass at least. In some places you can just pass 1, but in a lot of places you have to pass 2 parts to for it to record that you even passed any parts. So if you pass 2 parts, you can go back and take the other parts individually and get them one at a time. And that's how a lot of people do it. They'll pass the 2 parts and that. My mom has a friend who's really, really smart, who's an accountant, and it took her like 3 or 4 times to pass. My dad sat down and passed the entire thing in one go with like an over 90% average on every section.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that sounds like
I
my dad,
didn't.
actually.
That sounds. He said, "Well, we were gonna move, and I didn't want to have to retake it in Indiana." And I said, he said, so like the pressure was really on. I said the pressure was on regardless because it's you.
Yeah,
Like, you could have not been moving and you still would have done that.
that's true.
My dad is like a fucking genius, and he somehow, I shouldn't say somehow. My mom is not the brightest. She's a very lovely lady, but she's not the brightest. And Sage is laughing because she knows it's true. And that's how you got me. I have the skills, but my brain just doesn't function correctly to use them.
I feel
And anyways, do you have anything else before we get started? Because we have kind of a long episode.
I do not.
All right. So this week we're talking about somewhere that is very near to where I grew up, kind of. Near and dear to where I grew up for the first several years of my life. And a lot of people think they know about it and they kind of don't.
Okay.
So this week we're talking about the French Quarter of New Orleans. For those of you who are going, you live in Indiana, bitch. I did not always live in Indiana. I'm from the South. All right. So, the French Quarter of New Orleans has a certain reputation. Behind the tourism, Cajun charm, and the wild celebrations of Mardi Gras, there is a darkness lurking. Superstition and the supernatural have created a place quite unlike any other in the French Quarter. From voodoo queens to vampires, the French Quarter has mythos and legends dating back centuries. Some of these legends still persist today. So dim the lights, grab your stuffed turtles, and get ready to journey through the dark lore of the French Quarter. Where did your lighting go?
Tried to turn it down one and it basically turned off, and I wasn't going to draw any attention to it.
And you were basically gone in the abyss. I'm glad you can follow instructions, though. Dim the lights, grab your stuffed turtles.
I followed them. I did just try to turn it down one because I realized how pale I looked, and then the one it just like I got the turtle
So,
though.
yeah. I don't know that you'll need it this episode, but, just in case. So, let's start with a brief history. And genuinely, there is so much lore that I want to cover for the French Quarter that I really don't want to spend too much time on the more academic side of its history. And look, I'm just as shocked as you are about that. But I just think today we only need to touch on the really important stuff. Some of the stuff will provide context for the other stuff we're going to talk about. So I've condensed it into just a quick little timeline.
Okay.
In 1718, Jean Baptiste Lemoyne de Bienville, sorry French people, founded New Orleans. He named it after the Duke of Orleans in an attempt to curry favor in court with him. This fails spectacularly after Lemoyne flops at every single other thing he does. In 1721 to 1722, engineer Adrien de Pauger designs the city grid. It was created as a military style grid of 70 squares, establishing the Place d'Armes, which is now Jackson Square. 1762 to 1802, Spanish rule takes over. King Louis XV didn't really care too much about his small French colony, so he transferred it to his cousin, King Charles III of Spain. The French residents briefly rebelled, but were quickly put in their place by the Spanish. Spanish architecture, like stucco, the courtyards, and the ironwork, replaced French timber construction after fires in 1788 and 1794. This is what gives the French Quarter its unique appearance. In 1803, the Louisiana Purchase transfers the colony to the United States, with slow cultural inroads being made by incoming Haitian and French immigrants into the native Creole population. 1815, the Battle of New Orleans takes place, fighting against the British. After the American victory at New Orleans, many immigrants come flooding in, including Irish, German, New French, and African immigrants, as well as Americans from other regions. 1861, the Civil War begins, with New Orleans as a whole being an important location for the South. On April 24th, 1862, the Union captures New Orleans and cripples supplies and troops for the South. This was a pivotal early loss for the South, and New Orleans would remain under Union control for the duration of the war. At the end of the war, slavery was, of course, outlawed, although many people of color still faced harsh conditions and harsh treatment. It is worth noting, however, that the French Quarter in particular was more tolerant of people of color than the rest of society and the South due to its cultural mixing. Early 1900s, jazz music becomes popular, bringing in swells of people and musicians, as well as writers later on in the 1920s. 1936, the Vieux Carré Commission is established to regulate and preserve the historic areas. So now that the basics are out of the way, let's get into the fun stuff or frightening stuff, depending on who you ask.
Why is every French guy named Jean Baptiste?
It's like the John Smith of France,
Like, I
you
feel
know.
like I covered France a lot, so I was there for a while. And like
You're
every
the
guy
you're,
is Jean
you're
Baptiste.
you're like the French expert
Also, when you said the
at
Battle of
this
New
point.
like the British, I the song stuck in my head now. So I'm over here like and the British kept it coming.
Oh,
So
I was like, which one? There's a bunch.
so when you when you say that, I'm just over here like
Fired our guns and the British
British kept
started
it
running.
coming.
They ran as many as there were a while ago. Dun, 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 dun. I hope that's not copyrighted. I imagine it's not. It's so old.
I wouldn't think so. Either way, it was just playing in my head, so I'm sitting here and listening to you like and the British kept it coming.
Somebody's gonna have beef with me for this episode already because I mentioned jazz music and I'm not talking about the Axeman.
I That's what I was thinking. I was like, it was the Axeman. I was like, I feel like the Axeman wasn't there, but I wasn't entirely sure. I second guessed
He
myself first.
so the reason I'm not doing that is because I don't care about it.
It's fair.
I feel like most people know about it and kind of have a good gist of it because it's become such a cultural thing.
Yeah.
Um, Shout out American Horror Story for that one. But and also it's been covered by so many people at this point that I just, why it's beating a dead horse.
I like the
Go
story.
watch go watch Shane and Ryan's video on it.
Dan Ryan did
You
a
know,
really good
if you
job on it.
if you want to. Yeah, they did a good job. I'm not going to pretend like I'm going to even do half of that good of a job on it. So, not doing it. So, the first section we're going to do is I've entitled Haunted Hotspots. In this section, we will dive into some of the most haunted locations in the French Quarter. I'm not including NOLA at large here and restricted my selection to only locations in the actual French Quarter. New Orleans just has too much going on for me to cover extra stuff in the time we have. Starting off strong, we will go to the heart of the French Quarter and hear the horrors of LaLaurie Mansion. A fair amount of people actually know of this house and Madame LaLaurie thanks to American Horror Story. If you watched the show and thought, oh, they're embellishing, no one is that evil, you are incorrect. She was evil as fuck, and every time I read about what actually happened, I get a little ill. Like that's not a joke either. Like I always I feel a little sick every time I read it because it's just so outlandish.
Gilly?
Yeah. Like I remember when I watched it, like I knew about who Madame LaLaurie and I watched it and I was like, people are gonna think this is like super and it's not. So LaLaurie Mansion is located at 1140 Royal Street. In 1838, Madame Delphine de LaLaurie moved into the massive residence with her husband and daughters. This was her third marriage, and something wasn't right. Despite coming from a genteel background and holding up every social appearance, Madame LaLaurie was not your typical socialite. Indeed, she had a history of sadistic tendencies that was often excused because she was a wealthy white woman with many connections. In 1833, she chased a young enslaved girl with a whip until the girl fell off the roof. The girl died, and LaLaurie tried to cover it up by throwing her body in a well. However, this crime was discovered, and she was fined and forced by police to sell her remaining slaves. LaLaurie was not happy about this, so she circumvented justice by selling her slaves to family or friends and then sneaking them back to her property. Her thwarting of justice would not last, however, as on April 10th, 1834, a large fire broke out in the kitchens. The weather keeps changing here, and it's wreaking absolute havoc.
Feel that.
As rescuers tried to stifle the blaze and save the home, they discovered a 70-year-old enslaved black woman chained up in the kitchen. The woman told her rescuers that she had set the fire herself in a suicide attempt. LaLaurie was so bad that this poor woman was willing to burn to death rather than endure her torture for another day. LaLaurie's sadistic nature had found targets in the slaves, and this woman was apparently the cook. She was kept chained in the kitchen and was frequently starved. Fortunately for her, she was able to tell them this as they arrived, since LaLaurie was off trying to save her furniture instead of literally anyone else in the house. The enslaved woman led the rescuers up to the attic where they found 7 slaves tied up with spiked iron collars. They found, and I quote, 7 people, more or less horribly mutilated, suspended by the neck, with their limbs apparently stretched and torn from one extremity to the other. They freed them all, then took them to a local jail so that the public could come see them and be convinced of their suffering. Maybe police thought they couldn't really do anything to her and they were hoping for vigilante justice. I don't know, they didn't tell me. But it was an odd idea, but apparently it worked. Remember how earlier we said that the French Quarter had a greater tolerance for people of color? That held true here, and once the residents, including the wealthy white residents, learned of the torture chamber, they mobbed the house. They destroyed everything they could, essentially leaving only the walls standing. LaLaurie and her husband fled the home and escaped New Orleans by boat. It is believed that they went back to France, and LaLaurie is believed to have died in Paris in 1842. The thing about Delphine de LaLaurie is that it wasn't even just the slaves. Her cruelty extended to anyone she believed to be hers, including her daughters. If her daughters attempted to feed any of the slaves or lessen their suffering, LaLaurie allegedly beat the hell out of them too. No one can say why she was that way for sure, but slave uprisings in her early childhood may have tainted her feelings towards them especially. And I also imagine being married off to a high ranking Spanish officer at 13 and having her first daughter at 17 probably didn't make her more normal either. Also, both of her previous husbands just suddenly died, which has led many to believe she killed them. Interestingly enough, her son wrote in a letter later in life from Paris that he believed his mother hadn't the faintest idea why they had to flee New Orleans. Naturally, many people believe the mansion to be haunted by the ghosts of the enslaved people who were tortured and died there. At least 12 slaves were killed by LaLaurie during her tenure there, and despite the house being rebuilt after the mob, the spirits seem to not have moved on. Visitors report screams, moans, and the clinking of chains. Some have reported seeing the ghost of a little girl, maybe the one chased from the roof roaming the grounds. Passerby have seen ghastly faces peering at them from the upper windows. One of the most unnerving, in my opinion, is the smell of rotting meat. Because is that demonic or is that what those poor slaves smelled like because of their injuries.
Trouble.
It upsets your stomach, doesn't it? The other smell people report is expensive perfume, no doubt LaLaurie's. I wonder what she wore. Like, what perfume does evil wear, and why do good people probably wear it too? It's scary to think about. It is also worth mentioning that the house is widely believed to be cursed, with many owners falling upon misfortune. Nick Cage was actually one of them, and that checks out. Like, that's a very Nick Cage thing to do.
Yeah.
He also wanted to buy a castle at one point, so I am not shocked he would buy this house.
I'm not
So,
shocked by that
yeah,
either.
no, but when they say, like, they were it's on my screen, that they were, like, mutilated, limbs stretched from extremity to extremity, like, she was doing, like, some super, like basically, I mean, I don't think she was sewing bulls' heads onto people, but the rest of the stuff that you kinda saw with the slaves in the attic and how horrible their condition was and what she did to them is fairly accurate from what I can tell.
That's
And the thing that's the most fucked up about it is the extent of her cruelty. Like I said, the extent of her cruelty was not just to the slaves. It was anyone that she believed she had ownership of, including her daughters. Like, she
that's
didn't do that to her daughters because they were white women and therefore better in her mind. But still,
that yeah,
like,
that's
you're just all
horrible.
around a bad person.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that place is actually haunted. I 100% believe it
Yeah.
is.
Even
And
if it's residual
hmm
haunting, like,
hmm
there's just
that
that
amount of
energy.
suffering. Yeah, that amount of suffering, man. But it does make me feel very proud to know that the residents of New Orleans heard about this and saw what condition those slaves were in and said, "No, fuck you.
I love that.
We're getting her ass." Like, they had to flee by boat. They sprinted down to the harbor. She took her daughters and her son, saying that his mother and her son knew why they had to leave New Orleans. He was well aware. But he was like, "Yeah, my mom doesn't understand why, like, what she did wrong."
That's that's actually the scary part. Doesn't conceptualize what's wrong.
How do you feel about the fact she was married at 13 to a grown man?
I
I don't think that helped.
I don't think that helped. I This is definitely a nature versus nurture situation.
Her parents, because of the slave uprisings, were probably a very specific way. And when you take someone that kind of has that already kind of has some tendencies, and then you give them these ideas about other people, and then you get put them. She clearly had no control in her personal life because nobody chooses to get married at 13,
Yeah.
have a baby at 17,
She took control of what she could.
in
That's gonna
just like the
be
worst way possible.
yeah.
But she's also not one of those, like, sometimes you'll read about, like, a serial killer or something, and you're like, I almost feel bad for them. I don't feel bad for this bitch.
Yeah, I don't feel
Fuck,
bad for
fuck
her.
you, rotten hell.
Yeah, I don't feel bad for her.
I have some strong opinions on her. Next, we will visit St. Louis number one cemetery. I almost said the same thing again. I didn't put these two one after another because of American Horror Story. I swear it just happened that way. And you'll see why I say that in just a minute. Anyway, St. Louis number one is New Orleans' oldest cemetery, founded in 1789.
Oh,
Now, it holds over 700 tombs and 10,000 grave sites. The cemetery has become home to many of the famous dead over the years, and some of them refuse to stay put. If you see a woman meandering through the tombs in a red and white turban with brightly colored clothes, you may have seen the ghost of Marie Laveau herself. Known as the Voodoo Queen of New Orleans, Laveau was a woman of incredible power and influence. People at all levels of society flocked to her to fix their problems, and she apparently did. It was even said that she knew all the secrets of every level of society in New Orleans due to her proximity and practice. She took her practice seriously in life and continues to do so in death. Those who disregard her and voodoo may find themselves pinched, scratched, or even pushed down by her. Otherwise, there are many different phenomena reported at her tomb. Some people report feeling unexplainably ill while trying to communicate with her, or hearing voices from inside the tomb. Some people come to have a wish granted by her. There is a practice of placing 3 X's on her tomb to ask her to grant a favor, and then returning with a gift after she has done so. However, vandals ruined this for everyone after spray painting her entire tomb pink, and now the cemetery is closed to the public and has been since 2015, with only licensed tours being allowed in. Needless to say, please do not mark her tomb in any way if you visit, because what if she doesn't like it? Do you want to piss off the voodoo queen? Because I don't.
I don't.
I can't even say that that's one of the last things I want to do because it doesn't even make the list of stuff that I want to do. And also, it's a historical site, so you shouldn't do that anyways. Like, what possesses you to go to a historical site and spray paint an entire tomb Pepto Bismol pink?
Literally.
Like,
What the
why?
fuck?
What's wrong with you guys?
I think I want a tomb I want a tombstone that's photo fake. I would love that.
Well, maybe you. Okay, I'll come vandalize your tomb, but you
Okay.
told me to just now. That's how I
Yeah,
feel. You've told me to.
that or Tiffany
Also,
blue.
you know what? My granny's stuff was all Tiffany blue.
I
That was her favorite color.
Tiffany blue, turquoises, seafoam greens, like
Well, of
colors
course
in
you like
that
turquoise.
colors in that like range like are some of my
Right.
are my favorites.
You
If you
guys,
guys
when I
had
die, guys, when I die, you can come vandalize my tomb. I give you full permission, actually. I want to see what you put on there. Please draw penises. Laveau isn't the only ghost on the grounds, though. I may mispronounce this guy's last name. Henry, it's either Vignes or Vines. I'm going to say Vines. Is a tragic figure looking for eternal rest with his family that he will never find. Vines was a seafaring man, and due to this, he simply made home at a local boarding house. Before one of his voyages, he left some very important papers in the care of the boarding house owner, including the papers for his family tomb. She assured him that she would keep his papers safe. But while he was gone away, she sold the family tomb and presumably anything else she could actually sell. When he returned and discovered her deed, poor Henry fell ill and died before being able to legally rectify the injustice. Since he no longer had a tomb to be buried in, he was buried in an unmarked pauper's grave. Now he roams the cemetery, asking visitors if they know where the Vines family tomb is. He has even popped up behind mourners at funerals, asking if there is any room for him in the deceased tomb. And this made me so sad. Like, Henry, I know the boarding house owner's dead, but if you can hear me, I will go jump her. I'll go jump her ass right now. Like, why would you do that?
it sounds like he just wants to like find a place to finally rest.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's I don't know why it's making me think of Billy from Hocus Pocus.
Oh. But yeah, no. And you're gonna be even sadder. This just gets sadder. The third spirit who walks the ground is Alphonse. Alphonse is also looking for a place to rest, and he is known to appear to visitors and grab their hand before smiling and asking them to take him home. He is also sometimes seen taking flowers or offerings from other graves and placing them on his own tomb. Whenever a visitor goes near the graves of the Pinade family, Alphonse will warn them to stay away, leading many to believe he was murdered by a member of that family. And my dumbass would probably just say yes and have a dude named Alphonse haunting my house forever, but I guess no one else has, despite the fact that he has a reputation as a very polite young man. Sage, do
Makes
you
me
want to go
so
get him with me?
sad.
Let's go get
Yeah,
him.
let's
Let's
go
go
get
get
him.
him. Bring him home.
We're breaking into a cemetery to kidnap a ghost.
Again, I'll pay for us to go on a license tour.
I will.
And if we see either of them, they're gonna be like, "Will you take me home?" And I'm like, "Yes, honey, I will.
You guys can come.
You can come. You can come. I'm so
Oh,
sad for you."
can I tell you something really weird?
Yes.
So my downstairs is where like a lot of the ghosts like stuff happens, and upstairs
Mhm.
as well. Like
Yeah.
specifically my office. There
Mhm.
are 3 areas that we don't have any like ghostly anything happening, which is the
Right.
bathroom, the hallway, right outside the door, and the bedroom.
Mhm.
Those are the 3 rooms with a bunch of spiders. My office, ghostly energy,
Mm.
no
No
spiders.
spiders.
Downstairs, we get some ghostly energy, spiders.
You sure you want me to get clear those spiders out of your attic? Are you sure?
I don't even know if we have any up there because
Why are there ghosts?
the exterminator said that it was too hot up there for anything to live.
Oh, okay, good.
So,
So if anything's up there, it's a dead and a ghost. Got it.
yeah.
Another ghost here is named Jimmy. Jimmy is a toothless man with a stout build who asks visitors to put flowers on his wife's grave. He is also known for being very stinky, which makes sense since most dead people are. There is also a drunken ghost named Fagin who alternates between telling dirty jokes and singing bar tunes as loudly as he can.
I
This
wanna
man is living his yeah, afterlife to the full potential, bro.
I'm bringing him home with me.
We're just gonna hear for "He's a jolly good fellow" in the background at some point. Um, he often does ask for a ride home, which is very responsible of him.
That is so
He's not
good.
drinking and driving. He's like, "Hey, bro, give me the keys." He's like, "Can I get a ride home? I'm pretty drunk."
I love that.
We
Like,
know we know he wasn't killed in a drunk driving incident. Or maybe he was, and that's why he's learned his lesson.
maybe.
Chess champion Paul Murphy is also buried here and can sometimes be studying a ghostly chessboard, which is basically the opposite of Fagin.
He's not coming home with me.
I'd bring him home. I suck at chess. Maybe he could help. And guess who's going to appear again? And you never will, or maybe you will. It's Nick Cage. Nick Cage owns a plot in St. Louis Number 1 with a big white pyramid for a tomb on it. Some think he is looking for Laveau's protection in the afterlife after owning the LaLaurie mansion. Regardless of the reason, someday you may walk through the cemetery, see his ghost, and be asked a new ghostly question. Do you want to steal the Declaration of
That's what I
Independence?
was gonna say.
Yeah! You know
Oh
what?
my god.
I told Sage this while I was writing this episode. I knew a lot about Nick Cage and I always thought he was cool, but post this episode, like I fear he's one of my hear me outs.
I forgot that you sent me a picture of him and said this has to do with the episode, but you will have no context until we record.
Yeah. Hmm.
I love it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, no, it would be weird if Nick Cage dated me, considering I'm not available and he's old enough to be my father. But Nick Cage, if anything happens to my man and you're listening, call me. So now we're gonna move on to these are my excited fingers. I'm gonna take a quick drink. My eyelids are really sticky today. I think it's the humidity.
Probably. Today it's 52.
Yeah, I think it's like only 60 here.
It was 95 2 days ago.
That's how it's been here. It got down to like 36 degrees one night recently, and it had been like 89 during the day, and I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah,
It's going to be 70 degrees in November at some point because y'all won't stop using AI to have conversations with your favorite characters. Use your brain like the rest of us. It's called imagination. Ask SpongeBob about it. Right. You know what? Okay, off topic. We're going on a tangent. Do I told Daryl that a lot of girls do this thing where they imagine little scenarios before they go to bed, whether
yeah.
they be with real or fictional people, right?
Yeah.
He looked at me like I was insane, and I said maybe you should start doing it and you'd go to sleep better.
I do that every night.
Every night. Every night. Like this is so normal.
This is gonna be so weird. Sometimes I listen to sad songs and I'll like
Mhm.
imagine Dennis has died, and this is the song that I'll listen to while he's dead.
Let's go. I get the little music video of my own life.
For you listeners who can't see this, Megan's laughing so hard her mic won't pick it up.
My laugh has gone silent. I'm just wheezing.
Oh my god. We took such a strong turn away from the story.
I can't. do you do you ever do that thing where you just have some extra free time? Like, so I'll do all my chores during chores. Okay, I'll do all of my chores during the day that I need to do, and then my son will go to bed at like 8. And Daryl doesn't get off work till 9, so I have this like hour where I have nothing to do. And sometimes I'll put my headphones in and listen to music and just pace in a little circle in the kitchen for like 30 minutes.
I
Do you ever do
do
that?
I do that when I'm doing my chores. I'll just be like, you know what, I can't. Also, I
I
won't
get all
go
my stuff
face.
done. I get all my stuff done, and I'm like, now as a reward, I'm gonna imagine little scenarios.
I'm so glad to know that, like, that is a normal thing. Because like, I was just like, maybe I just am, like, such, like, a daydreamer.
Called maladaptive daydreaming, from what
Yeah.
I understand. And it's exceedingly common, although I guess some people have it bad, where they just like can't do anything else.
I
Like I can still do my dishes.
caught me picturing Dennis dead to a song.
I'd be real though, I'm pretty sure I've done that. Not Dennis. I don't picture Dennis. But yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
goodness.
Or like when you're trying to go to sleep and the little characters in your head won't act right, you're trying to imagine just like this insanely emotional scene and somebody does a fucking like front flip.
Yeah.
You're like, what? Why?
You're like, what was the point of that? That served no purpose to the scene I'm building.
Right. And that's how I used to write fanfic. That's how I'd write fanfic, is I would just like imagine the little scenarios in my head. And the problem is I wrote, and this is going to be so cringe, but it's very popular on Tumblr. And so there's a motivation for why I do this. And most of my traffic was from my Tumblr to my AO3 account. And that's why bad things happen in my life, because I have an AO3 account and I write. Um Not anymore. I haven't written in several like a few years. But I would write like X reader, because a lot of girls like to insert themselves into these things, right?
Yes.
So I'd have to picture myself in order to get the content I needed. And I'm like, why is Madara Uchiha doing a front flip? We're getting a divorce.
Love it. I love it.
Like, you haven't been the same since the death of your brother. Flip. God damn it.
That's what you mean. They haven't been the same.
God, when the dab came out, that was the
Oh,
worst.
God.
I can't even say why is Naruto hitting the dab, because that just makes sense. So, anyways, now that we've taken this diabolical tangent, we're going to talk about something I absolutely love. Possibly the only thing I love more than my son and Naruto fanfiction. Notice I'm not including Daryl. I'm too busy picturing him dying in 9/11 to a My Chemical Romance song.
I love I love that. I love that analogy you just used.
We're going to talk about vampires,
That's why
which
that I said I love that you used the 9/11 MCR and now we're talking about vampires.
right, right. I was going to say um that fucking, what's her name? Julia Wolf, I think is her name. That song's like, I want your things in my room. I miss you all the time. God, I wish that had been around when Twilight was out. That would have been so. Oh,
Oh, I forgot to tell you. I finally watched Lord of the Rings.
all of them?
I just watched one of them.
Which one?
The first one.
The Fellowship?
Yep.
Did you like it?
I actually did.
It's good.
Well, because
Feel free to watch them all.
I always like talk shit to Dennis about them because he'll be like he'll talk shit about something I like, and I know that
Right.
he likes Lord of the Rings, so I immediately like start attacking
And
Lord of
now
the
you can't
Rings.
because it's good.
I still can, but now I'm more educated. But
Right.
also
Did you?
I fear I might be Pippin.
I was literally going to say, I would love to say that we're Frodo and Samwise, but we are completely Merry and Pippin.
Yeah. I heard
Um,
Pippin do something and I looked at Dennis and I was like, "Ah, these two can go away." And then Pippin said something and I looked at Dennis and I was like, I fear I actually might be Pippin.
oh, wait. Just wait. The comparison gets more apt later on. But, you know when Viggo Mortensen kicks that helmet after Boromir dies? He actually broke his toe. That's why his scream was so, real, because it was. He broke his toe. That's every Lord of the Rings fan's favorite fun fact to tell.
Okay.
So, we're going to talk about vampires now. New Orleans' plethora of dearly departed may not be the only ones haunting its streets, though. There are plenty of legends to suggest that something a little more undead might have taken up residence there. Vampires don't just exist as a fairy tale in the history of the French Quarter, but as an actual concern, with some unsettling tales to back up that idea. In this next segment, we are going to explore the possibility that humans were not the only ones to come over from the old world. And this all begins with the story of the Casket Girls. In 1721, a group of young women arrived from France. These women were sent by the King of France to become respectable wives for the men who were already settled there. After all, New Orleans was supposed to be a French port city, a strategic location, and the king did not want the families there to be the result of offspring with, working women, to put it politely. So, he began a program called Daughters of the King, where he would pay these women's dowry in exchange for them going to America. These women were supposed to be women of good breeding who could not find matches in France, but this was not always true. Many of the women were from poorhouses and brothels. One story that particularly stuck out to me was that one of the girls sent over was only around 12 years old and had been working in a Paris brothel since the age of 6.
Who is paying for
Frenchmen. While this program sent over 800 women out overall, we are focused on a particular group who went to the French Quarter. 88 women made the harrowing journey across the Atlantic with only the trunks they carried with them and hope for a good future. However, there were problems the moment they arrived. The men who saw them step off the boat described them as unnaturally pale, so much that their skin would blister in the hot southern sun. The girls lived at the Ursuline convent in the third floor attic and stored their large trunks there as well until they could find suitable matches, at which point they would move out to be with their new husbands. The girls lived in relative seclusion to protect their virtue, with the third floor windows being shuttered the entire time. However, many of the girls were never matched, and those that were often terribly mistreated by their husbands. Much of this came from the girls' odd looks, strange dispositions, and the men preferring other company that they were more used to. In addition, crop failures and mysterious deaths from illness shortly after the girls' arrival threw a heavy shade of suspicion on them. Upon hearing this, the king ordered the girls to be sent back to France. While waiting for the girls to depart, the nuns of the convent went to the third floor to gather the girls' belongings, only to find that the trunks were completely empty and the girls were gone. What happened to the girls is a bit of a mystery, as it is really hard to find a solid source on it online. The legend says they vanished without a trace, but it's actually pretty likely that the girls who had already wed stayed with their new families and the rest found work elsewhere. Some may have gone back to France as well. Either way, the nuns were horrified by the whole thing, fearing some sort of supernatural evil, and had the third floor windows and doors nailed shut with blessed nails to ensure no supernatural thing could enter or exit the room again. Many began to whisper that the large trunks the girls had brought were actually where they slept because they were vampires. Others said that the girls were humans, but had smuggled vampires to the New World in those trunks, like they were familiars or something. Either way, their legend is the start of vampires in the French Quarter. Also, their name is a bit of a misnomer. They were called casquette girls, as a casquette is a box or trunk in French. They didn't bring actual caskets, but the Americanization of the name stuck. I'd like to circle back to the fact that these casquette girls did not only arrive in New Orleans, they went to various other places as well, including French Canada. The girls integrated with better or worse luck in the various places they went, but it does raise a question because none of the other places have stories like this. So, what exactly happened with this particular set of casket girls? Was their arrival just poorly timed and their luck bad as well? Or was there really something supernatural afoot? Or maybe there's vampires in French Canada now, too.
and they just didn't care
One of
enough
them,
to talk about it.
one of them is dating Katy Perry, from what I hear. Do you know who she's dating?
No.
Justin Trudeau.
Okay. Okay.
Our next potential member of the undead is Jacques Saint Germain. To fully understand the story, we have to talk about the legendary Count of Saint Germain first. The Count, or Comte, was a man who lived in the 1700s and was of questionable origin. He never established when or where he was actually born, and his fellows struggled to guess at either point. His name was also not his real name, but he never told anyone what it actually was. The Comte de Saint Germain was an incredibly talented, captivating man. Despite appearing to be somewhere in his 50s, He was widely considered attractive, with a real magnetism that drew people to him. He was a high society man and behaved as such. He was well dressed and polite, and moved through the ranks of nobility with ease. His repertoire of skills included chemistry, music, fluency in many languages, and the art of storytelling. Indeed, his tales of his adventures around the world enchanted everyone who heard them. In terms of his more chemical pursuits, he claimed to have created a liquid that would stop the aging process entirely. He also claimed to eat a food unknown to anyone else. Many contemporaries did note that despite hosting many lavish dinner parties, he was never seen eating. Although it is believed that the Count died in Germany around 1784 at the age of 93, many people claimed to see him afterwards. It was widely said that his unnatural longevity was due to his occult and alchemical knowledge. If you guys have ever watched Castlevania, this is the same Count Saint Germain or Saint Germain that is mentioned in the show. Sage, I don't think you've ever seen Castlevania,
No.
but those of you who have know exactly who I'm talking about. Fast forward to the early 1900s at a house on Royal Street, and there lived a man named Jacques Saint Germain, and he was different than everyone else. He was captivating. He had a persistently youthful appearance, was refined and cultured, and told stories of the past to the guests at his lavish dinner parties. He told these stories a little too well, though, almost as if he was actually there. Of course, he explained this easily by claiming to be a descendant of the legendary Count Saint Germain, and these stories were passed down.
Why
Much like
does
the original. Hmm?
this gives me Great Gatsby
Does it?
does.
I was gonna say it's giving Dorian Gray somehow, but I see Gatsby now that you're mentioning it. Much like the original Count, despite hosting dinner parties, he was never seen eating or drinking any of it. The only thing people ever saw him consume was what appeared to be red wine. All of it put together made people a little suspicious. Some believed he may actually be the original Saint Germain who had achieved immortality. No one was really bothered by that, though. The man just had something about him that drew people to him, and all these people wanted him there. However, things would soon take a darker turn. A woman who was found injured beneath one of his home's balconies stated she had not fallen, but jumped to escape him. The woman, likely a sex worker, had been lured into his home, where once inside, Jacques had attempted to bite her in the neck. During the attack, he became distracted by a knock on his door, giving her time to jump. When police asked Jacques about it, he claimed that nothing had happened, and that because it was so late, he would come by the station in the morning to give a formal statement of events. Due to his high status, police believed him far more than they believed the woman and allowed him to do just that. However, when the agreed upon hour arrived, Jacques did not show. Police went to his house to bring him in, but the door went unanswered. Finally, they said to hell with it and just kicked the door down. Upon entering, they were met with a shocking scene. The house was deserted and Jacques long gone. They did find blood-stained tablecloths and exactly 0 utensils for eating or drinking. The worst was yet to come, though, as they would enter the wine cellar to find corked bottles of red wine. When they opened them, it didn't smell like wine at all. It turned out to be a mixture of blood with absinthe, likely to prevent coagulation. Jacques was never seen again. Now, I can't find solid evidence that a man named Jacques Saint Germain lived in a house on Royal Street in the early 1900s. However, it is not entirely out of the realm of possibility, because many of these houses were rented out. And records for this can be really sparse or just not exist at all.
Nobody keeps records like France.
Really? Like, you would think with all the French people down there, the records would be better, but like, a lot of people have looked into this and said, yeah, it's kind of impossible to tell because, you know, if he didn't own the house and was just renting it like a lot of people did, then
A lot of it was just paid by cash, like, you could use a fake
mhm,
name at that
yeah.
time.
In addition, the lack of police reports for the incident could very well be due to him never actually issuing a formal statement and no real case ever being opened. Like the police didn't ever actually start the case because they were supposed to talk to him that morning, and then he didn't show up. And so then they're like, well, fuck, this is, what year is this? The early 1900s? They're like, oh, fuck, what can we do now? There's no forensics.
Yeah, and they can't put a bolo out.
It's just gone.
It would take a lot
Nothing, nothing,
longer.
nothing more for us to do here.
Yeah. Could you
But
imagine
either
trying to
way, go ahead.
I was
No,
like,
go ahead.
could you imagine trying to put a bolo out at that time?
On a potential vampire at that.
Yeah, like,
Crazy.
it would take forever because
Crazy.
like, nowadays, they have systems where I can send and alert systems, but,
Right.
like, you would have to, like, have someone run over to the next town,
Just
tell
running.
them, and then it would have to keep going. So,
I
like,
guess they could have a horse,
well, that's what I figured.
but he's got, like, at least a knight's head start on these guys,
Yeah, so,
so they're not catching him,
no.
especially if he can turn into a bat and fly or something.
Yeah.
But either way, many believe him to be the, Count Saint Germain, who owed his long life not to alchemy, but to vampirism. Saint Germain is such a ridiculously interesting person. I highly encourage you guys to look into the OG guy, the OG Count, because his stories are fascinating and the stuff he did was fascinating. In terms of historical figures, he's like, in terms of how fascinating they were, he's up there with like Casanova for me. Because I don't know if you know this, Casanova was a real person.
I did not know that.
Yeah, Cowboy Casanova by Carrie Underwood, based off of a real guy.
I only know the Carrie Underwood song.
He's not a cowboy, but my god, he got around. I encourage you guys to look into his story too, because he led an incredible life. Like genuinely, not just in terms of being a playboy, but just like overall. And would you believe it if I said we were going to talk more about vampires? The early 1900s gave rise to yet another account of vampires living in the French Quarter, although I don't find this one probable. And keep it real with you, Chief. I don't find this one probable.
Really.
Yep. I'm including it just because it comes up a lot in Google. And I'm gonna when you look it up, like look up vampires in like the French Quarter. I'm gonna tell you
Okay,
why I think it's dumb.
okay.
In 1932, a young woman ran down Royal Street begging for help. She told police she had been held captive by two brothers, John and Wayne Carter. But these were not ordinary men, you see. Instead of killing their captives, they tied them to chairs and slowly drained them of blood. Police, of course, wanted to know what the point of that was, only for the girl to tell them that the brothers drank it. Needless to say, she wasn't well believed, but she was obviously injured and distressed, so police tagged along with her to the supposed vampire's den. To their shock, it was exactly as she had described, with four other victims tied to chairs half drained of their blood. Legend says that the brothers were caught and executed, but their graves were empty only a year later, further fueling rumors that they were vampires. And you can disprove this pretty quickly. And it's not because vampires are not real. Um, it's because you can look up every single person executed in every state for the entire like time we've had the death penalty. And 1932 is not long enough ago that we don't have those records. And there wasn't anyone with those names executed in Louisiana at all during the 1900s.
Yeah, so wasn't
Um,
it in New Orleans? Yeah, I'm wrong. Where, like, they would do, like, a special routine to make sure that somebody wasn't a vampire wouldn't come back. I feel like I learned this in elementary school, but, like, obviously we know what type of schooling I had.
so there wouldn't have been any like, as far as I know, wouldn't have been any regular practices for that. That was actually more prevalent on the East Coast, where you live,
Okay.
like Mercy Brown.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think the East Coast is where that was most prevalent. I'm
Okay.
sure it happened at some point in like NOLA, but probably not with any regularity. But so this story is either wildly embellished or just totally untrue. But it does speak to the fascination with vampires in the French Quarter. So the vampire tradition does not end in modern day, though. Even though science says vampires. Hmm?
Sorry, I was talking to myself.
What did you say?
I said, "Oh, I knew that." I seemed shocked that I was like, "Wait, no, I did know that." Why am I shocked?
Even though science says vampires do not exist and cannot exist, modern tales from the French Quarter are just convincing enough to plant the seeds of doubt. For one, there is more than one person online who claims to have met real vampires in New Orleans, specifically the French Quarter. Before we get into any specific tales, right? Let's address the self-admitted vampires living there. there is a decent amount of people involved in a self described vampire subculture that live in New Orleans. I started digging into this like a while ago purely out of curiosity. Do you know who Jenny the Vampire is on TikTok?
No.
She's like LARPing as a vampire. It's pretty cringe, but I just find it fascinating, and that led me down this rabbit hole.
Um,
Um,
you talk about this, I wanna ask a question and maybe I'm jumping ahead on you,
okay.
but wasn't there in the TLC show My Strange Addictions, wasn't there a group on there that was vampires who would drink pig's blood?
I don't know.
I
That
think
sounds like something that happened.
let me fact check myself while you talk.
So I started digging into this a while ago purely out of curiosity, and I thought they were weird. My opinion over time has changed substantially, and you know what? I'm cool with it. They're quite frankly more normal than the vast majority of people I interact with in various other online communities, and the whole culture seems pretty chill. Some of them are energy vampires, or those that feed off the energy of others. You might be familiar with this concept if you've ever watched What We Do in the Shadows, due to their depiction of Colin Robinson, who is one of my all time favorite characters in anything ever. Energy vampires gain their sustenance through interacting with others and draining their energy. And sometimes their food is aware of this, and sometimes they aren't. Um, theory, like one thing they say is that like if you've ever had an interaction with somebody and you've just left it like, oh my god, that was the most exhausting thing ever. I think everyone who works in a if you work in a call center and you enjoy your job, you're probably an energy vampire.
Yeah. So I was right. I don't
Okay.
know where she lives because it doesn't say, but there is an episode featuring a vampire, and it's titled Blood Drinker, and it's by Strange Addiction, season 4, episode 8. It focuses on Michelle, a 29-year-old who consumes about a gallon of pig's blood every month and also draws and drinks blood from close human friends.
Is this the lady that lives in Florida?
I don't
I
actually know. I'll look that
don't
up.
know. So it doesn't really matter either way, as this seems to be somewhat harmless for all parties. Being an energy vampire, like the worst that you're gonna do, I think, is make someone a little sleepy after an interaction. There are those who drink blood as well, though, and this is a consensual act in these communities. Most of them aren't just biting willing victims on the neck either. They typically engage in various bloodletting rituals. And just for context sake, let's remember rituals are not necessarily a religious thing either. It's just a habitual, repeated act that may or may not have a deeper meaning. Um, it's also not an inherently sexual act, although for some of those involved, I'm sure it is.
100%.
100%. Did you find out if she lived in Florida?
She's from Lancaster, California. She's a tattoo artist.
I knew it was somewhere like tropically and warm. Odd
Yeah.
location for a vampire, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah.
In New Orleans specifically, there tends to be communities of vampires rather than solo ones, and they might even be involved in their communities at large. A really good example of this is Nova, or the New Orleans Vampire Association. They're a group that is made up of a bunch of different vampire houses. So that's what they do. They have like houses of vampires that you belong to, and they all come together under this umbrella. And one of the things they're known for is providing meals for the homeless and in need people on major holidays. This tradition started during their founding right after Hurricane Katrina. Like they were basically first responders, and they went
Oh,
out and were giving people food. They're like, "We're vampires, here's food."
I love that.
I just think it says a lot that the blood-sucking vampires of New Orleans did a lot more than the blood-sucking vampires of the government. This makes sense. It makes sense for them to be fairly charitable, though, as this lifestyle draws people from all races, religions, and background who just believe they are absent some life energy that others take for granted. Um, if I'm not mistaken, they hand out on Easter, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, which you'll note are primarily Christian holidays because they're not all Satanists, as it would turn out, y'all. I
Okay.
didn't think they were, but some people do, and they're not. A lot of them are just either atheist, agnostic, pagan. Some of them are Christian. I'm sure there's like Jewish ones. There's probably not any Muslim ones if I had to take a guess, but I don't know. Um, and if you want to know more about them because it's super interesting, and they do some very good work in their community, I put the link to their website in my sources,
Okay.
so we'll put that somewhere. I don't know if I think they take donations. I
Okay.
would donate.
Would
Donate.
I would donate.
If it was going to feed, like, in need people, absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Nova, you're great. My area of interest here is the other kind of vampire. This one's a little more intense, and these people are not claiming to be vampires. They might actually be vampires.
Okay.
One story in line with this comes from a woman named Ness. I got this story from a TikTok user. I will be crediting that TikTok user towards the end of this, just if anyone recognizes this story and goes, hey, this is from so and so. I know. We're going to talk about her. Ness and her sister were in New Orleans for Fat Tuesday, which, for those of you who don't know, that's the day before Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras is the start of Lent on Wednesday. Um, and they were partying at the bars of the French Quarter, like everyone else there. And they met a black man with beautiful light green eyes who they were having a really good time hanging out with. Despite leaving the bar and exchanging zero information, they ran into him at another bar. They talked in line to get into the bar, and he gestured for them to go in first and asked if they wanted him to come in too. Obviously, thinking nothing of this, they said yes. He did this at every bar they went to after that as well. He offered to walk them home at the end of the night, so he walked them back to their hotel. He began slow dancing with Ness's sister under one of the streetlights. And Ness said her and her sister were both kind of in a trance, like they were so entranced by this man. And then he leaned in as if to bite her neck, his teeth just barely grazing her skin. The sister yanked back and told him she was sorry, but she wasn't really looking for anything like that. He uh he looked dead at them and asked if he could come in. Both sisters felt the same chill run down their spines, and Jen immediately told him no. Ness said his face seemed to shift under the streetlights from like the face he had, and to just she didn't say what, but it just shifted.
That's
And then he turned and walked away. The sisters glanced at each other before looking back towards him, and he was just gone.
I would like to point out, men, this is how you accept no. How you accept reaction. Walk away.
Right. Look, if vampires have to do it, so do you. Vampires at least understand that no means no, okay? So, TikTok user Ashley Inc. shared this story on her page as one of her viewers wrote in to tell her about it. The viewer did not state their name or anything other than the fact that their name was Ness. Um, Facebook user Janine Riera shared her story on a group post. I found this group post and I was like, there's got to be some good stories in here, and there was one that I found super interesting.
I love finding a Facebook group.
So, for context, she said she was raised very religious and sheltered with no real knowledge of vampires. She actually grew up Pentecostal.
Okay.
Those of you who know about Pentecostal people will go, yeah, this woman doesn't know shit about that. Um, and she was 17 when this happened. I'm just going to read her story off her post since it's a little long and I didn't want to leave anything out. I went with a group of friends to the French Quarter for Mardi Gras. They were all parked at Lee Circle for the next day. Me and my best friend, who was older than I, decided to walk down from Lee Circle to Bourbon Street. It was a surprisingly slow Mardi Gras. We were walking down Bourbon at about the 400 block, and I saw this guy almost gliding down the center of the street. People were just moving out of his way before he even reached them. He was looking straight at me. He was tall, pale skin, shoulder length black hair, and very pale blue eyes, almost ice blue. He stopped right in front of us and started kissing me before he even said a word. Which, that's actually not that out of place at Mardi Gras.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah. He said his name was Michael. He said something to my friend, and she said she was going back to the trucks. What?
when you were initially like saying like he was gliding down the street, I was like, oh my god, it's my dad. And then you said Michael.
Yeah. I'm sorry, all I'm picturing is your dad on a hoverboard. Just bothering women at Mardi Gras.
We know what his that'll be his that's where he'll probably move after my passes.
Dude, if he moves down there, we're visiting. um, he said something to my friend, and she said she was going back to the trucks and left, and he took my hand and turned around and took me to the parade above the pub. This was about 10 or 11 p.m. We sat up there for hours talking about everything and nothing. He was drinking whiskey neat, but every time he kissed me, his mouth was ice cold. At about 2 a.m., he wanted to take a walk. We were walking at the back of the quarter near Esplanade. We were walking and holding hands, and all of a sudden he asked me why I wasn't afraid of him. I asked why I should be afraid. I would never walk around the back of the quarter with a stranger in the middle of the night now, but like I said, I was very naive. And he asked me, "How old do you think I am?" And I said 22, 23, and he said that he was 147 years old and just looked at me. I said I didn't understand how he could be that old, and he said he was a vampire. I didn't say anything because it didn't really register. By the way, I didn't drink or do drugs and was very sober. So we kept walking and talking. He seemed surprised that I didn't react to what he had told me. He told me that he worked at a certain famous bar in a famous old hotel. I don't want to say which one. Then I told him that I wanted him to meet my friends, and we walked all the way to Lee Circle. My friends were up, and I introduced him to everyone. My friends were all in their 20s and 30s. We talked for a while, and he wanted to go back to the quarter. It was getting really late, and you could see that it was almost dawn. He said he had to get home, so I went with him. We got to his place, which was on Conti, and he asked me to come in. We went up the stairs to his place, and I kid you not, he went around and put these big padlocks on these thick shutters that were about 4 or 5 inches thick. He locked them all down on every window he had, including his front door upstairs. There was a main door downstairs that led back outside. His front door was a self locking door that locked automatically when it was closed. He then asked me to lay with him while he fell asleep. He lay down next to me and didn't try to have sex or anything. He fell asleep almost instantly and was very still and cold, almost stiff like. I couldn't move his arm even though I tried. The next thing I knew, I was waking up and it was almost noon. He still looked dead and still, and I eased off the bed and left. The thick wooden door locked behind me. I went back to my friends and asked them what they thought of him. They, including my best friend that had met him when I did, said that I wasn't with a guy and I had come back alone. I knew this wasn't true and thought they were playing a joke on me, but they were serious and said they didn't know who I was talking about, like their memory was wiped. I even walked back to Conti the next afternoon and I could not remember where he lived. A few days later, I called the bar he said he worked at, and they said he had died 30 years prior and that his picture was on the wall. I went to the bar, and behind the bar, his picture was there in black and white, and you could tell it was from the 40s or 50s. I never saw him again. I've only ever told the story to my two children when they got older, and never told it to anyone except my best friend. I also want to point out that this happened. Oh, this is where I take back over. That's the end of her story. I want to point out this happened in 1987, so before the Anne Rice vampire explosion.
Okay.
So if somebody was walking around in 87 claiming to be a vampire, it wasn't because they were like a pop culture nerd. They genuinely probably thought they were a vampire or they were a vampire. Another reason that I feel this is important is because this woman would have been 54 years old at the time she posted it. Why would you make something like that up now?
Yeah.
And there are tons of stories like this online. In just a really brief amount of time, I found posts on Reddit, Facebook, and TikTok.
Okay.
Like, they there's a lot of people claiming to be picking up vampires as Uber drivers in the French Quarter and in New Orleans at large. There was a oh gosh. I couldn't find her original video. So I didn't want to use it because I don't want to use something that may have been altered or cut in some way to make it seem a certain way. I saw the original video forever ago and now I can't find it. Like I saw it like last year. It was it's a black woman. She's an author as well. She works as an Uber driver on the side because writing obviously doesn't make that much money
Yeah.
unless you're like Stephanie Meyer,
Yeah.
James Patterson.
Yeah. Nicholas
But
Sparks.
yep, Nicholas Sparks. And she had picked up a couple of guys, and she swore up and down they were vampires. They were super weird. They just didn't, they gave her this weird feeling. And, I think normally I don't put a lot of stock in people's Facebook posts. But like I said, what does this woman have to gain?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to come to her for a movie deal. Like, I looked at her profile. She just seems normal.
Okay.
So, I don't know. I think that she might have met an actual vampire. So, we're going to leave vampires now. Um, I said this was going to be a long episode. And there's definitely more in the French Quarter than ghosts and vampires. Voodoo and hoodoo are alive and well there, and we touched on New Orleans history with voodoo when talking about Marie Laveau. And that's actually where we're going to leave the voodoo discussion.
Okay.
Shockingly. The main reason for this is because voodoo is to most people a closed practice, and I want to be respectful of that. Like, yes, we could talk about certain practices or certain celebrations. In fact, I believe it's the St. Martin's Eve celebration is very popular down there. But it's just none of my business, you know? Um, I do know a fair amount about voodoo. Um, but I am a white lady who minds her own affairs, and also voodoo is one of those things that when people who don't need to know about it end up knowing about it, they do dumb shit with it. Like you guys, like people learned about Papa Legba from American Horror Story, and immediately some white Wiccan lady died trying to summon him to hex her ex. That's not a joke either. You can Google like white girl dies trying to summon Papa Legba, and it will pop up.
Atlanta.
What I do want to talk about, though, is the way that the tourism industry has commodified the voodoo practice. The amount of shops selling shit and claiming it to be voodoo when it's not is crazy. And a lot of this more scary, eye catching tourist trap stuff serves only to further demonize what can best be described as a cultural melting pot of faith. I'm not saying there are not parts of voodoo that could be described as very intense and maybe a little scary, but we don't need to make it something it isn't either. You know, like I said, I know a thing or two about voodoo. I'm from the South. I was involved in some more occulty practices as a youth and looked into a lot of stuff. Um, like yeah, you did you see that TikTok? This is a good example. Did you see that TikTok video of that girl at a hair salon? A girl came in and asked her to wash her hair, and she had a bunch of chicken blood in her hair.
No, I did not.
I guess that woman who washed her hair's child passed away 3 days later. And the running theory is that she swapped fortunes with her. So yeah, there's shit in any practice that can be very scary, used for evil. Obviously, like anything else, you can use voodoo for, it's all who wields that power. It's through the ancestors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If we were going to talk about something kind of fun now,
Okay.
on a lighter, shorter note, have you ever heard of the Grunch?
Not.
Not the Grinch, the Grunch. While this cryptid doesn't technically live in the French Quarter, it got its start there in one version of its lore. The Grunch is a very chupacabra type of creature with scaly skin and a row of spines lining its back. In some versions, it also has a goat head and cloven hooves. It's about 3 or 4 feet tall, so about the size of a large toddler.
Okay.
It reportedly feeds on livestock, and it drains all blood and organs out of the single hole it creates when it bites. Some people believe the Grunch is a result of all of the pain and hardship from the early days of New Orleans, but others tell a different tale. In this version, in her old age, Marie Laveau came into possession of a devil baby. Now, this may or may not be the same devil baby as the other devil baby she supposedly cared for. Um, and I say that because fearing that the creature would grow up and reproduce, she castrated it,
Okay.
and its testicles fell to the floor and became a male and female grunch that attacked her. She fended it off, but at great cost to herself, and when she awoke, they were gone along with the devil baby. Now, the Grunch supposedly lives on an isolated little road outside the city called Grunch Road, and people claim to see it every so often. Sanitation workers see something strange raiding a trash can during early morning hours. People passing by see something in the tall grass, and sometimes livestock is found in the correct condition to suggest that the Grunch was there. And actually, residents of the Lakeview neighborhood say they do not leave their pets alone in the yard, since after Hurricane Katrina, many Grunches were displaced and now are in more residential areas. Because Hurricane Katrina
Okay.
just did a lot. Hurricane Katrina did more damage than I thought,
Sounds like
apparently.
it.
And the Grunge may also live on the local golf course, and I kind of can't blame it because, like, imagine harassing the golfers.
Yeah. That would
Just,
be
just some old white men, and you're grunching at them.
yeah, that okay.
So the French Quarter is a place full of history. Some of that history is simply the remembrance of events that happened there, but some of it may still walk among us. In the French Quarter, the ghosts of its past may actually be real ghosts. And those who came before may have never left and walk the streets at night still asking to come in. Maybe their remnants are outside the city as well, stalking livestock. So you might want to rethink that Mardi Gras trip, or at least going to the French Quarter while you're there. You might find more than a fun night of partying, and if that's the case, you might never leave. And
I love that.
that is the French Quarter.
I didn't realize how much vampire lore. I'm sure there's a lot more that we just didn't cover today.
Oh yeah, there's more stories online about vampires in the French Quarter than I could possibly cover in the time we have for an episode.
Okay.
And just in general, like now Anne Rice didn't help the situation.
Yeah.
She didn't help with Interview with a Vampire. But I mean, it was already there, right? The
Yeah.
thought process was already there. These are the hardest Slim Jims in the world to open, by the
Are
way.
they the ones that come in the little pack? Yeah.
So, Sage, any thoughts about the just any thoughts about anything we talked about?
I didn't realize how much the vampire stuff. I knew that there was quite a bit. I also know there's just a lot of vampire lore when it comes to like New Orleans in total, not just on the French Quarter. Really.
Hmm.
But I don't think I realized genuinely how much of it influences a lot of it.
Yeah. I would love to take a trip to New Orleans again. I would love to take a trip, and I would like to go stop by Nova, talk to those guys. They seem chill as fuck.
I want to. I ghost.
Yes.
I want the one that's
Alicia,
drunk.
you want Fagin?
I want Fagin.
Fagin sounds like, no offense to anyone named Fagin, but like the name Fagin makes me think of a drunk. Like some drunk Irish guy.
And I feel like he would at least like if he's gonna wake you up, it's gonna be because he fell down the stairs because he's drunk, and
Right.
not because he's trying to kill you. So
Right. I would take what's his foot Henry home. Alphonse.
I want Fagin.
See, most men when they hear their women saying, "I would take this man home," there's cause for alarm. But with us, we're just talking about some guys that died a really long time ago.
Yeah,
Unless it's Nick Cage.
mine's yours is Nick Cage. My biggest one is Johnny Depp.
Ah, he's just ugh. I think he's yucky as a person. Like he was hot when he was young, but I just think he's yucky as a person. Like, why are you consistently dating women that are so much younger? Amber Heard
I
stuff
have a
aside,
chance.
Amber Heard, okay? How old are you? How old are you now?
At this moment, 25.
You are reaching your cutoff with those men. Next year, Leonardo DiCaprio won't want you. um,
I don't want Leonardo DiCaprio.
Johnny Depp won't want you. Like it's so fun. Like I said, Amber Heard stuff aside, right? Which I think they were both just god awful people in that situation. Um, but I think he's a little yucky as a person. Just because he dates women that are so much younger than him consistently. Like, I was devastated to find out that Tobey Maguire, who played like OG Spider-Man in the movies, he's like 40 something. He's dating like a 19-year-old. I was devastated by that. What do you have in common with a night? Like now that I'm 30, I'm like, okay. And my frontal lobe has fully developed. I'm like, you're yucky for that.
Yeah,
Like I feel like once somebody hits like 25 and their frontal lobes developed, they're making these decisions. Or even somebody in comparable headspaces, but I beg to know Toby Maguire, what do you have in common with her?
yeah.
Like I don't have a thing against large age gaps as a whole. Obviously you and Dennis are quite far apart,
12 years.
but you and Dennis actually have things in common and I think you're quite similar mentally.
Is that a good thing or
So
a
it
bad thing?
makes you well, I've always look, you kind of grew up kind of quick, you know,
Yeah,
and that makes a difference. And when the way you guys interact at least makes sense,
yeah.
you know. Um, like I've never once looked at it. I would think Dennis was closer to your age, honestly. Like if he had a hat on and I couldn't see that he was graying, I
I
would think you guys were pretty similar.
I don't see him because he works seconds now, so I only see him, like, maybe 3 times a week.
Right.
Um,
I know exactly how that is.
and we were in bed the other day just, like, because we just both woken up, and now this is probably too much information, but my husband only sleeps in boxers. He cannot fathom having any other clothes on, he feels suffocated, and I rolled over, and I could see all of the grays on his chest. And now, like, he has, like, black chest hair, and it's not, like, a
Right.
lot, it's, like, patchy, it's not, like, a
Right.
jacket, it's just, like, he's got a little bit right here and right here, not much. But I could
Right.
see all the white hairs forming, and I was like, "Oh, no, he's getting older."
Do you want to hear something? The only thing more unhinged than just sleeping in your boxers is the way Daryl sleeps, where he wears long sleeve shirts, sweatpants, and socks.
I can't, no.
It's disgusting. I consistently ask him, "Why do you do this to yourself? Maybe that's why you can't fucking sleep."
If I sleep with, like I can sleep with certain types of pants on in the bed, but if it's, like, leggings or something like that, it feels like my legs are suffocating, and I panic, and I can't
Right.
same thing with my feet.
I wear nightgowns. I love a good nightgown. I'll wear muumuus. I don't give a fuck.
I love a good moo. When I almost got attacked
Like
by the bobcat, I was in a moo, and my only thought was, "Oh god, my neighbors
I'm
are
gonna
gonna
die
find
in a
me."
muumu.
That was my
Just
only
laying
concern.
there in a muumu with your ass out after getting attacked by a big cat. That's foul.
Yeah, that was my only thought was, "Oh god, I'm gonna die in a moo."
Right. Right. But yeah, so what was my point here? Oh, we're just trying to pick up Ghost and take him home for completely non-sexual purposes. We just feel bad for him.
Yeah,
So, okay, while we're talking about men dating women, right?
okay. Is
And my opinions on it, I forgot Zach Bagans dated Holly Madison.
that who he cheated on?
I believe so.
And it, like, caused, like
Well, probably all of them. He probably cheats on all his women. He looks like the type.
yeah, that is fair.
Once a cheater, you know. I believe women have more of a chance of reform in that regard than men because I think like I think that women who cheat for vastly different reasons than men do.
Yeah.
However, we still don't approve of that behavior, ladies. Once you got once you got a ring on your finger or you're in a committed relationship, time to be a grown up. Things you do, goofy shit you do when you're very young is forgivable. However, after a certain point, it's a pattern. You better wrap it the fuck up.
Yep.
So, I'll just never miss an opportunity to hate on Zach Bagans. What's that?
It's a it's a, poppet, but, it's got a
Oh,
and
I wondered why it was in your mouth.
I was
I was
blowing it
about to say, what vape is this? Can you imagine just
just like
vaping out of that thing? That'd be crazy.
that would be wild. No,
That'd be crazy.
that's the that's the babe. This would be wild.
That would be funny as fuck,
No,
though.
like, I
You,
s
you know what I think they need to make that would make me start vaping?
what?
A kazoo that you can vape out of. Be the most annoying person at the fucking function.
I would love that. I would use that constantly to piss Dennis off.
Yeah, yeah. I would use it constantly to piss Daryl off. He'd probably kill me actually.
This would probably shove it down my throat, and then I'd just be
That's what I'm saying.
wheezing, and it'd
He
be
would
a kazoo noise.
he would Daryl I could just see Daryl just going like stop and accidentally just and then I go to the hospital like what seems to be the problem and I'm like you know?
Yeah.
He's just standing there looking guilty as fuck. But that's all I have for you guys this week. Um Likes, questions, comments, concerns, please send them to our email or put them in the comments. Sage will have all that linked down below. Comments will link themselves, I imagine. That's how that works. Um, if you have any stories about the French Quarter, if you met a vampire anywhere, if you are a vampire anywhere, or if you're you're Nick Cage, please leave us a message.
If you are Nick Cage, I'll
That's it.
pass the message on.
Yeah, yeah. Don't check that shit. You'll be talking to Sage. You know what? I feel like he'd be so fascinating to have on.
Yeah, I think so.
There's a lot of people I look at and I just think you would be a fascinating podcast guest, but we'll never be famous enough to
Yeah,
have you on.
I feel like
Another
that.
person that I look at and think that is Doja Cat.
Yeah.
She's so weird. I love her. But all right, Sage, unless you have anything, I guess we'll wrap up. Right, bye.
Bye.